The walls of Royal Lodge have never felt so suffocating. For Sarah Ferguson, the sprawling 30-room Windsor mansion that has been her home for years has transformed from a sanctuary into a prison of her own unraveling. Those closest to the Duchess of York, or rather the woman who can no longer use that title, paint a picture of someone teetering on the edge of complete emotional collapse. At 66 years old, after battling cancer, surviving public humiliation, and weathering decades of scandal, Sarah Ferguson faces what friends describe as her darkest hour. The woman who once coined herself the Phoenix, always rising from the ashes, now finds herself buried beneath them. And this time, those who know her best aren't sure she has the strength to rise again. The breaking point. It began with a phone call that would change everything. When Prince Andrew informed his ex-wife that King Charles had made his decision final, both Andrew and Sarah would be stripped of their royal titles. Witnesses say Ferguson's reaction was immediate and catastrophic. She completely lost it, a close confidant revealed to sources familiar with the situation. We're talking full-blown hysteria. She was wailing, screaming that he couldn't do this to her, that he had no right to take away everything she'd built over 40 years. The scene at Royal Lodge that day has been described as something out of a psychological thriller. Sarah, who had pleaded with Andrew for days not to agree to King Charles's demands, found herself powerless as her ex-husband capitulated to royal pressure. The title Duchess of York wasn't just a formality to Ferguson, it was her entire identity, her brand, her livelihood, and her last remaining connection to the royal life she had clung to since her divorce in 1996. For nearly 4 decades, those 3 words had opened doors, secured book deals, generated speaking fees, and maintained her relevance in a world that had largely moved on from her tumultuous marriage to the Queen's second son. Now, in a single, devastating blow, it was all gone. The family summit from hell. The emergency family meeting that followed has been described by insiders as one of the most emotionally explosive gatherings in modern York family history. Princess Beatrice, visibly distraught and looking years older than her age, arrived at Royal Lodge on a grey Monday morning to find her parents in complete disarray. Photographs captured Beatrice leaving the estate later that day, her face pale and drawn, her usually impeccable composure shattered. She had hastily tied her hair back, dark circles evident beneath her eyes as she climbed into her black Range Rover and sped away from the chaos. Beatrice was absolutely gutted, a family friend disclosed. She felt blindsided. Andrew had agreed to release that statement, renouncing his titles without even consulting his daughters first. When she and Eugenie found out, they were in complete shock. Princess Eugenie, reportedly too distraught to face the family meeting, stayed away entirely. The younger York sister, known for her close relationship with both parents, couldn't bring herself to witness the implosion of her family unit. Instead, she remained at home, fielding desperate phone calls from her mother.
Not on. And all the brothers were, so I took them out of their grave, poor loves, and said, come on.
And trying to process the magnitude of what was unfolding. The summit, according to those present, was anything but diplomatic. Voices were raised. Decades of suppressed resentments surfaced. Sarah reportedly accused Andrew of betraying her, of sacrificing her dignity to save himself, of never truly protecting her the way a husband, or even an ex-husband, should. Andrew, caught between his brother's ultimatum and his ex-wife's breakdown, reportedly sat in stunned silence for much of the meeting, occasionally attempting to defend his decision before being drowned out by Sarah's emotional tirades. The family, which was once described as an unbreakable unit, is now fractured beyond recognition, an insider told the Daily Mail. This wasn't just a disagreement. This was the complete unraveling of relationships that had somehow survived divorce, scandal, and public humiliation for nearly 30 years. The toll on the York princesses. For Beatrice and Eugenie, watching their parents' world collapse has been nothing short of traumatic. These are 2 women who, despite the scandals surrounding their father and the controversies dogging their mother, have worked tirelessly to build respectable lives and careers independent of royal titles. Beatrice, a successful private equity analyst and CEO of her own firm, BEQ, has cultivated powerful connections in the Gulf states, regularly attending high-profile investment conferences in Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Qatar. Her company's value multiplied dramatically last year, a testament to her business acumen and the doors that open when one carries the title Princess. Eugenie, an art gallery director with a genuine passion for her work, has similarly built a name for herself in cultural and philanthropic circles, frequently appearing at prestigious events throughout the Middle East and Europe. But now, their parents' latest catastrophe threatens everything they've worked to achieve. Royal officials have reportedly initiated ethics checks on both Princess's investments and business dealings.
So I kind of have this sort of
scrutinizing every connection to ensure nothing traces back to their father's questionable associations with controversial figures. "It's humiliating," a friend of the sisters confided. "These women have done nothing wrong. They've been model representatives of the younger generation of royals, and yet they can't escape being tarred with the same brush as their parents. The sins of the father and mother are being visited upon them." The psychological impact on Beatrice has been particularly visible. In the days following the title announcement, she was photographed at a playground with her 2 young daughters, looking visibly distressed as she spoke on her phone. Witnesses described her as appearing absolutely poleaxed by the latest revelations about her father. One observer noted she couldn't even smile at her children. She just stood there, phone pressed to her ear, staring into the distance with this look of complete devastation. You could see she was trying to hold it together for her daughters, but she was falling apart inside. Sarah's complete emotional collapse. Back at Royal Lodge, Sarah Ferguson's mental state has deteriorated to a point that has friends and family genuinely concerned for her well-being. The breakdown has been described as comprehensive, affecting every aspect of her daily life. She's barely eating, according to household staff. She rarely leaves her bedroom, spending hours lying in bed staring at the ceiling or crying into her pillow. The woman who was once known for her infectious energy, her ability to light up a room, her determination to always present a brave face to the world, has essentially stopped functioning. She's hysterical most of the time, a source close to the family revealed. She'll have moments of calm, but then something will trigger her, seeing her old title on an old book cover, remembering a charity event she can no longer attend.
Street Child is so good is that Children in Crisis were in the field in Sierra Leone, saw Tom's work.
And she'll dissolve into tears again. It's heart-wrenching to witness. Her sister Jane flew in from Australia the moment she heard about Sarah's condition. Friends say Jane has been staying at Royal Lodge, essentially serving as a caretaker, trying to coax Sarah to eat, to shower, to engage with the world outside her bedroom walls. Jane is terrified, another friend disclosed. She's never seen her sister like this. Even during the worst of the scandals in the past, the toe-sucking photos, the financial troubles, the cash for access sting, Sarah always bounced back. She always found a way to smile and keep going. But this time is different. This time she seems genuinely broken. The timing couldn't be worse. Ferguson is still recovering from her recent battles with breast cancer and malignant melanoma. The physical toll of cancer treatment
Probably had to get on better with the policeman than Prince Andrew, in fact, just to make sure that in the car journey back they said, "Oh, she's nice."
combined with the emotional devastation of losing her title, has created what mental health professionals would recognize as a perfect storm for psychological breakdown. Adding to her anguish is the loss of her charitable patronages. In the wake of the email scandal that rocked her reputation earlier this year, several charities quietly severed their ties with Ferguson. For a woman who had genuinely thrown herself into charitable work, in part to rehabilitate her image, but also out of genuine compassion, these rejections felt deeply personal. She felt betrayed by everyone, a confidant explained. The charities abandoned her when she needed support most. Andrew agreed to give up the titles without her consent. Even her daughters, while supportive, have had to distance themselves publicly to protect their own reputations. Sarah feels utterly alone. The Prince Andrew problem. Complicating everything is the reality that Sarah's fate has always been inextricably linked to Prince Andrew's. Despite their divorce nearly 3 decades ago, they continued living together at Royal Lodge, maintaining what they described as the most modern divorced couple in Britain. But Andrew's ongoing controversies, the allegations he continues to deny, the questions about his finances, the suspicious origins of the £8 million he somehow acquired in 2005 have made him toxic not just to the royal family, but to anyone associated with him. The latest revelations about Andrew's emails and business dealings have intensified public scrutiny to unbearable levels. Questions swirl about how he continues to afford the upkeep of Royal Lodge, why he isn't paying rent to the Crown Estate, and where exactly his money comes from when he received no major inheritance from the Queen or Queen Mother.
You can, on occasions, get extremely lonely and isolated.
For Sarah, watching her ex-husband face this level of investigation and public condemnation has been its own trauma. Despite everything, she has remained stubbornly loyal to Andrew, defending him even when his own family members distance themselves. She genuinely loves him, a friend insisted. Not in a romantic way anymore, but there's a deep bond there. She's watched him go from the Queen's favorite son to essentially persona non grata within his own family. It's broken her heart. But that loyalty has cost her dearly. By standing beside Andrew through scandal after scandal, Sarah has ensured that his disgrace becomes her disgrace. His controversies become her controversies. His exile from royal life becomes her exile. The financial nightmare. Beyond the emotional devastation, Sarah faces a very practical problem: money. For years, she has relied on her royal title to generate income. The Duchess of York brand sold books, secured speaking engagements, opened doors to wealthy benefactors, and maintained her lifestyle. Without that title, her earning potential plummets. Book publishers are already reportedly hesitant to renew contracts. Speaking agencies have quietly removed her from their roster of available speakers. Brand partnerships that once seemed lucrative now appear dead in the water. She's terrified of becoming destitute, an insider revealed. She's been in financial trouble before. Remember when she was hundreds of thousands of pounds in debt? She's petrified of ending up in that situation again, but this time without the title to help her earn her way out. The irony...
It was just an invisible hand. You always felt it. And it was, you know, she...
is devastating. Sarah had spent the last several years finally achieving some semblance of financial stability. Her children's books had performed well. She had paid off her debts. She had built a modest but sustainable income stream from her various projects. Now, all of that is threatened, and at 66, with health issues, a destroyed reputation, and no royal title, her options for rebuilding are severely limited. The royal family's cold shoulder. Perhaps the most painful aspect of Sarah's current situation is the realization that the royal institution has completely severed ties with her. King Charles, who has made modernizing and streamlining the monarchy a cornerstone of his reign, has made clear that there is no place for Sarah Ferguson in the new royal order. Unlike Beatrice and Eugenie, whom Charles has reportedly vowed to protect and support, they remain princesses and their titles are secure. Sarah has been cast out entirely. Be invited to royal events. She will not appear on the Buckingham Palace balcony. She will not be included in official family photographs. For a woman who spent her entire adult life trying to remain connected to the royal world, who endured public humiliation rather than completely walk away, who lived with her ex-husband in part to maintain that royal proximity, this final rejection represents the end of everything she'd fought to preserve. She feels like she's been discarded, a friend said tearfully. Like 40 years of her life, all the service she did, all the appearances she made, all the times she bit her tongue and smiled through criticism, none of it mattered. In the end, they threw her away like she was nothing. Royal expert Ingrid Seward offered a harsh but honest assessment to the Daily Mail. Sarah has always been on the periphery of royal life. She was never truly accepted back after the divorce, despite her best efforts. The royal family tolerated her because of her relationship with Andrew and her role as mother to his children. But now, with Andrew himself cast out, there's simply no reason for the institution to maintain any association with her. What the future holds. As Sarah Ferguson navigates this devastating period, those close to her offer wildly different predictions about what happens next. Some believe she has the resilience to eventually rebuild, that given time, she'll find a way to reinvent herself once again, perhaps leaning into a narrative of redemption and survival. She's done it before, one optimistic friend insisted. Remember how she came back from the cash for access scandal? How she rebuilt after the financial collapse? Sarah is a survivor. She'll find a way. But others aren't so sure. They see a woman who has finally been pushed beyond her breaking point, who has lost not just her title but her purpose, her identity, and her place in the world. I think we're watching the end of Sarah Ferguson as a public figure, a royal commentator observed. This isn't a scandal she can spin or charm her way out of. This is existential. Without the title, without royal connections, without the brand she's built her entire post-divorce life around, who is she? I'm not sure even Sarah knows the answer to that question anymore. The psychological impact of losing one's identity after 40 years cannot be understated. Mental health professionals who spoke on background about similar situations warned that identity loss of this magnitude can trigger severe depression, anxiety, and in extreme cases, complete psychological breakdown. When someone's entire sense of self has been built around a title, a role, a public persona, and that's suddenly stripped away, it creates a profound existential crisis, explained Dr. Rebecca Manning, a psychologist specializing in trauma and identity. The question becomes not, who am I without this title, but rather, am I anyone without it? That's a terrifying place to be. The daughter's dilemma. Meanwhile, Beatrice and Eugenie face their own impossible situation. They love their parents deeply. That's never been in question. The tripod bond they share with Sarah has been well documented, a close mother-daughter relationship that has been both blessing and curse. But both princesses are also pragmatic enough to understand that their own futures may depend on distancing themselves from the York scandals. Royal insiders suggest that palace officials have quietly encouraged both women to step back from Royal Lodge, to limit their public association with their parents, and to build their brands independently. It's heartbreaking for them, a friend of both sisters revealed. They're being forced to choose between loyalty to their parents and protection of their own families and reputations. What kind of choice is that? Some royal experts have suggested that Beatrice and Eugenie might ultimately need to follow in their parents' footsteps and relinquish their own titles, not as punishment, but as liberation. By stepping away from their royal designations, they could finally escape the shadow of scandal and build completely independent lives. It would give them freedom, Ingrid Seward argued. Freedom from their parents' mistakes, freedom from the constant scrutiny, freedom to make their own way in the world without the weight of the York name dragging them down. But such a decision would be devastating for Sarah. Her daughter's princess titles represent her last remaining connection to royal life, her final proof that she was once part of that world. If Beatrice and Eugenie were to walk away from their titles, it would feel like the ultimate rejection, the final nail in the coffin of her royal identity. The breakdown continues. As this article goes to press, sources close to Royal Lodge report that Sarah's condition has not improved. If anything, she seems to be sinking deeper into despair. She's stopped answering most phone calls. She's stopped posting on social media. A dramatic change for a woman who had actively maintained her Instagram and Twitter presence for years. Her most recent Instagram update was telling. All references to Duchess of York quietly disappeared from her bio. Where once her profile proudly proclaimed her royal title, now it simply lists her name and her work as an author and philanthropist. It's a small change, but it speaks volumes about her new reality. Friends who have managed to speak with her describe conversations that wander, that lack the focus and energy Sarah once brought to every interaction. She talks about feeling like a ghost, like she's watching her own life dissolve from a distance, powerless to stop it. She said something that really stuck with me, one friend recounted. She said, "For 40 years I've been fighting to prove I belonged. that I deserved to be part of that world. And now I realize it was all for nothing. They never wanted me. They never will. The depression appears to be clinical, not just situational. Several friends have urged Sarah to seek professional mental health support, but so far, she's resisted. There's a stigma, particularly among her generation and her social class, about admitting to mental health struggles. She sees it as another failure, a confidant explained. Another weakness to add to the long list of things she's gotten wrong. She doesn't want to be that person, the one who needs therapy, who can't cope, who breaks down publicly. But the truth is, she desperately needs help. A life in ruins. Looking at Sarah Ferguson's life trajectory is to witness a particularly cruel form of tragedy. She began as a bright-spirited young woman who captured the heart of a prince. Her wedding to Andrew in 1986 was a national celebration, complete with all the pomp and pageantry the British public adores. For a brief, shining moment, she was beloved. The press called her refreshing, genuine, down-to-earth, a welcome contrast to the more reserved members of the royal family. She seemed to represent a modernization of the monarchy, a bridge between tradition and accessibility. But the fairy tale crumbled quickly. Her marriage deteriorated. Her weight became tabloid fodder. Her financial decisions were questioned. The infamous toe-sucking photographs destroyed her reputation. The divorce followed, and with it the loss of her Royal Highness title. Yet through it all, she clung to Duchess of York. That title became her lifeline, her proof that she had once been somebody, that she still had value, that she remained connected to something larger than herself. She built a career around it, wrote books about it, used it to open doors and create opportunities. When she spoke at events, she was introduced as Sarah, Duchess of York. When she signed books, she signed as the Duchess. Her email signature, her social media handles, her website, everything proclaimed that title. And now it's gone. At 66, after surviving cancer, scandal, divorce, financial ruin, and public humiliation, Sarah Ferguson has lost the one thing she couldn't imagine living without, her royal identity. The unanswered question. As the world watches this tragedy unfold, one question dominates. Will Sarah Ferguson survive this? Not survive in the physical sense, though her friends' concerns about her mental state are genuine and warranted, but survive in the way she's always defined survival. Will she rise from these ashes? Will she reinvent herself once more? Will she find a way to matter again in a world that has seemingly decided she doesn't? The woman who called herself the Phoenix now faces her ultimate test. Can she rise without the title that defined her? Can she find meaning and purpose without royal designation? Can she rebuild her relationship with her daughters, her public reputation, her sense of self? Or is this finally the end? The breakdown from which there is no recovery? The scandal that proves too devastating? The loss too profound? The psychological toll too heavy? Those who love her hope desperately for the former. They cling to memories of her resilience, her ability to smile through tears, her determination to never give up. They remind themselves and each other of all the times she was counted out before, only to come back stronger. But those who have witnessed her current state fear the latter. They see a woman who has been pushed beyond her limits, who has lost not just a title, but her entire reason for being. They worry that this time, the phoenix won't rise. This time, the ashes will remain ashes. Conclusion. A royal tragedy for the modern age. The story of Sarah Ferguson is, in many ways, a uniquely modern royal tragedy. She represents the collision of old-world institutions and new-world media, of private struggles played out on public stages, of a woman who wanted desperately to belong to a world that never truly accepted her. Her nervous breakdown, if we can call it that, is not just about losing a title. It's about the realization that 40 years of effort, compromise, and perseverance were ultimately futile. It's about understanding that no matter how hard she tried, how many times she reinvented herself, how determinedly she smiled through humiliation, she was never going to be enough for the institution she loved. And perhaps most painfully, it's about confronting the reality that her loyalty to Prince Andrew, Her determination to stand by her ex-husband through scandals that would have driven most people away has cost her everything she had left, as Sarah Ferguson remains largely confined to Royal Lodge, barely eating, rarely sleeping, crying through days that blur together in an endless loop of despair. The world watches and wonders. What happens to a duchess who is no longer a duchess? What becomes of a phoenix that can no longer rise? The answers to those questions will determine not just Sarah Ferguson's future, but her legacy. Will she be remembered as the woman who survived everything thrown at her? Or as the woman who finally broke under the weight of it all? Only time will tell. But for now, inside the walls of Royal Lodge, a 66-year-old woman faces the darkest night of her life, wondering if dawn will ever come again. Join the conversation. Share your thoughts on the latest developments surrounding Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew in the comments below. What do you make of it all? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more royal news updates.